We've been conditioned to believe that education is something we receive in classrooms, handed to us in textbooks, measured by scores, certificates, and degrees. But the truth is, most of what we call education today is a training about memory, not the training of the will. It's a system that teaches what to think, not how to direct one's thought. And that is precisely why so many people, even the intelligent and capable ones, drift aimlessly through life accomplished on paper, but unsure of what they really want or why they're even doing what they're doing. Napoleon Hill saw through this illusion. He understood that success is not an accident, it is a deliberate outcome. And that deliberate outcome begins with one thing: definiteness of purpose. The ability to say with full conviction, this is what I want, this is where I'm going, and this is who I am becoming. That kind of clarity does not come from a syllabus. It is born in silence, shaped by thought, and forged in the fire of desire. When you have a definite purpose, everything else begins to organize itself around it. Your thoughts become more focused, your decisions become sharper, your energy becomes more potent. You stop reacting to life and begin creating it. A person without a definite aim may work hard, may be intelligent, may even be ambitious, but they are like a ship without a rudder. They move, but they don't arrive. They act, but they don't build. And yet no one teaches us. No one sits you down in school and says, before you learn algebra, learn yourself. Before you memorize history, write your own future. No one tells you that clarity is power, that knowing what you want is worth more than all the information you could ever gather. Why is this principle so neglected? Because the system isn't designed for creators. It's designed for followers. But the moment you break away from that mindset and say, I will be the architect of my future, that's the moment you begin a real education. Because now your mind is no longer drifting, it's driving. When Hill interviewed the most successful people of his era, Carnegie, Edison, Ford, he noticed one thing in common. It wasn't talent, it wasn't luck, it wasn't even intelligence. It was clarity. Each one of them had a burning, definite goal, and everything they did served that goal. They weren't scattered, they were single-minded, and that single-mindedness gave them an almost supernatural momentum. It allowed them to harness time, attention, and opportunity in ways the average person never could. You see, definiteness of purpose is not just about setting goals, it's about aligning your entire psychology, your thoughts, your habits, your environment with a mission that matters deeply to you. It's about removing vagueness from your life and replacing it with intention. It's about being able to say no to what's easy so you can say yes to what's essential. There's a psychological reason this works. The human mind, especially the subconscious, is goal-oriented by nature. When it knows what you want with precision, it begins to work on that goal even while you sleep. You notice patterns, you make connections, you attract resources. Your brain becomes a magnet for solutions that align with your purpose, but when your mind doesn't know what it's aiming for, it starts serving whatever stimulus is loudest. That's why people get stuck chasing things they don't even care about, because they never decided what actually matters to them. Clarity turns the ordinary mind into a focused weapon. And the act of defining your purpose is not a one-time decision. A daily affirmation every morning. You must remind yourself, this is who I am. This is what I am creating. This is a life I am committed to. Without that repetition, the noise of the world will blur your path and hijack your energy. So how do you find this definite purpose? You don't discover it in a textbook. You discover it in your honest desires, in what excites you, what angers you, what moves you. You must ask yourself questions no one else will ask. What would I pursue if I had no fear? What injustice would I correct if I had the power? What ideal won't let me sleep at night? When you answer those questions truthfully, not to impress, not to conform, but to know, you begin to uncover the seed of your purpose. And once that seed is found, your only job is to feed it every day. If you do not decide what your life is, for someone else will decide for you. If you do not choose your path, you will be used to build someone else's. And if you do not have a definite purpose, your mind, no matter how brilliant, will serve no lasting aim. So let us be clear. The real education, the one that creates builders, thinkers, and leaders, does not begin with facts. It begins with focus. It begins when you stop asking what the world expects of you and start asking what your spirit demands of you. Because once your purpose is clear, your path will begin to appear. And when you walk that path, not just with knowledge, but with clarity, courage, and consistency, that is when your real education begins. Let your purpose be louder than your fears. Let it be stronger than your doubts. Let it be the reason you rise and never stop. There's a moment in every person's life when they hear a whisper from within, something quiet, something sincere that says, "You were meant for more." It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, but it returns again and again, nudging, inviting. And the way we respond to that whisper determines whether we rise to our greatest potential or fall into the crowd of the forgettable. The bridge between that inner voice and real transformation is one word: faith. Now, I'm not talking about blind belief or religious ceremony. I'm speaking of faith as a mental discipline. Faith, as Hill understood it, is not a passive state of hoping. It is an active process of choosing to believe in the reality of your desire before there is any physical evidence. It is directing the mind with conviction rather than allowing circumstances to direct it for you. That's where the magnetism begins. The human mind is the most sensitive, the most powerful transmitter and receiver of signals. We know thoughts held with emotion and repetition become vibrations and like attracts like. This is not mysticism, this is metaphysical psychology. When you believe in your goal with such strength that you act as if it is already yours, your subconscious mind begins to seek out people, ideas, and opportunities that align with that belief. It's as though your inner world sends out a frequency and the world responds in kind. But here's the challenge: most people never overcome. They wait for evidence before they believe. They want to see the results before they commit emotionally. And that right there is why most dreams die in hesitation. Because the law doesn't reward evidence first thinking, it rewards faith first living. You must believe before the world believes in you. You must act on what is unseen as if it were already visible. That's what Hill meant when he said, "Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve." People often ask, how do I build that kind of faith? And the answer is you train it. Faith is not a gift, it's a practice. Just like muscles in the body, the mind must be exercised daily in the direction of belief. You affirm what you want, you visualize it, you speak about it, you write it. You surround yourself with influences that reinforce your conviction and remove those that weaken it. Over time, your subconscious begins to accept this dominant thought as reality. And once it does, the floodgates open. Let me give you a simple but powerful truth. The mind does not know the difference between a vividly imagined reality and an actual one. When you imagine something with enough clarity and emotion, your nervous system responds as if it's happening now. That is the secret. When you combine thought with belief and feeling, you move from merely thinking about success to living in the reality of it, even before it has arrived. And that vibration changes everything. But understand this: doubt is a poison. Even a small trace of it can short circuit the magnet. Doubt introduces static, it muddies the frequency. That's why protecting your belief is just as important as developing it. You can't feed your mind 1 hour of faith and then 7 hours of fear, anxiety, and negativity, and expect anything extraordinary to happen. What you water grows, what you repeat becomes real. So be ruthless about what you allow into your consciousness. This is where most people falter, not because they lack intelligence or ambition, but because they've never been taught how to believe on purpose. We're conditioned to be logical, rational, skeptical, and while those tools have their place, they will not build a dream. Logic is useful for planning, but faith is essential for vision. And vision, not logic, is what creates revolutions, both internal and external. The moment you begin to live by vision and not by sight, you step into a different category of human being. You stop waiting for permission. You stop asking for reassurance. You stop measuring yourself by what is and begin shaping what will be. That is how leaders are born. That is how empires are built. That is how one person with no obvious advantage transforms their life while others remain stuck in cycles of mediocrity. Think of every great innovator, every world changer, every self-made individual. They all had to believe in something tight, They had to invest their faith into an idea that looked impossible, and the world called them crazy until the vision materialized. So I ask you, now what is it that you deeply desire but have yet to fully believe in? What dream are you entertaining cautiously when what it demands is total commitment? If your faith were just a little stronger, how differently would you act today? The mind, once directed by unwavering belief, becomes an unstoppable force. Not because it manipulates reality, but because it reshapes the one thing that creates all reality: perception. And when your perception is built on faith, not fear, you no longer wait for opportunity. You become it. The success blueprint they don't teach you doesn't begin with strategy or tactics. It begins here in the quiet choice to believe even when it's difficult, especially when it's difficult. Because in the end, your mind will always move toward what it believes to be true. Make sure that truth is one you've chosen, not one the world has handed you. And remember this: the world bends not to the loudest voice, but to the strongest vibration. Make yours a vibration of belief, and the world will have no choice but to respond. Most people are not lazy. That's the biggest lie society tells people are busy. They are in constant motion. They rise early, stay up late, check boxes, take calls, attend meetings, run errands. From the outside, it looks like discipline, it smells like productivity, but in reality, many are just moving in circles. What they lack is not energy, it's direction. What they need is not more effort, it's clarity. This is where the blueprint gets lost for so many. Because we've been conditioned to associate movement with progress, we think if we're active, we must be advancing. But movement alone means nothing if it's not moving you closer to your definite chief aim. Action without clarity is like a ship with full sails and no compass. The wind may be strong, but the destination is uncertain, and without certainty, time becomes a thief rather than a servant. Now, I want you to consider something most people never do. Every single day that you take action without knowing your why, your what, and your where to, you're reinforcing confusion at the subconscious level. You're programming your mind to chase the urgent rather than the essential. And this is why so many people wake up one day with regret. They realize they spent years climbing a ladder, only to discover it was leaning against the wrong wall. Clarity, you see, is not a luxury, it's a responsibility. It is the first principle of power. Without it, desire is scattered, energy is wasted, and decisions are reactive. When you are clear, your actions have force behind them, your presence sharpens, your time compounds. 1 hour of focused effort is worth a week of wandering. That's not an exaggeration, that's mathematics. You want to know why most people never succeed? It's not that they lack intelligence or passion. It's because they spend 95% hots of their time doing and only 5% of their time thinking. But all power begins in thought. All riches are first internal. So if you're moving fast but never stopping to ask, is this what I truly want? Is this aligned with my highest purpose? Then you're not being productive. Being obedient to distraction. Let's not forget what Hill emphasized repeatedly: definiteness of purpose. That is the cornerstone of the entire philosophy. It is the flame that directs all fuel. Without a clear goal, your efforts are like sunlight through fog, diffused, weakened, scattered. You focus your mental rays on a single point of intention. Clarity becomes your leverage, and your actions begin to carry exponential weight. But clarity doesn't fall out of the sky. It doesn't arrive by accident. It's something you must choose to create. And that process begins with silence. Not noise, not hustle, silence. You have to be willing to get still enough, long enough, to hear what's true for you, not what's trending, not what your family expects, not what society applauds. Clarity begins the moment you stop performing and start listening. Listening to that inner truth that has no applause track but carries infinite wisdom. Ask yourself, where am I going? Why do I want to go there? Who do I have to become in order to arrive? These questions aren't optional. They are foundational. Because once you answer them, decisions get easier. You stop entertaining what doesn't align. You stop chasing things just because others are. You stop measuring success by what you can acquire. And stop measuring it by what you can become. Clarity is what separates the imitators from the innovators. It's what separates the exhausted from the empowered. And here's the paradox: Once you get truly clear, you'll probably do less, not more. But what you do will be potent, deliberate, targeted. You'll realize that the goal is not to get more done, but to get the right things done. That's where freedom lies. That's where fulfillment begins. And if you think you can bypass this process, let me be direct, you can't. You might get lucky. You might stumble into temporary success. But without clarity, it will never last because you won't know how to repeat it. You won't know how to scale it. And most of all, you won't feel aligned with it. And success that isn't aligned is just another prison. So if you find yourself spinning, chasing, reacting, pause. Get still, review the map before continuing the journey. No great architect begins with hammer and nails. They begin with a vision, a blueprint. So must you. You don't need more action. You need more direction. You don't need more steps. You need the right steps. And you don't need to rush. You need to know, because the moment you know, the path clears, the fog lifts, the noise fades, and suddenly your life stops being the to-do list and becomes a mission. That's the power of clarity. It turns movement into momentum. It transforms action into achievement. It gives meaning to every task, purpose to every hour, and peace to the restless heart. So don't just move on purpose. Don't just act with intention, because the real secret to success isn't doing more. It's doing what matters with clarity so strong. The world feels your presence before you even arrive. You can dream, you can plan, you can even believe, but if you cannot discipline yourself, if you cannot consistently act on what you know, you will never cross the bridge from intention to realization. Discipline is the invisible force that takes all your invisible thoughts and desires and turns them into visible results. You don't see discipline. It doesn't show up on Instagram. It isn't loud or dramatic. It's the early morning wake up when no one is watching, but quietly builds the extraordinary. That's why Hill said, success requires no apologies. Failure permits no alibis. Because if you're not willing to govern yourself, the world will govern you through limitation, regret, and missed opportunity. The truth is, most people are addicted to the idea of freedom, but allergic to the structure that creates it. They want the fruits of success without the roots of discipline. But every empire, personal, financial, spiritual, rests on a foundation of repeated effort, repetition of right action, repetition of right thoughts, repetition of right principles, and discipline is the glue that holds all of that together. When motivation has vanished, motivation is temporary. It's emotional, it's external. One bad day, one failed attempt, one discouraging comment, and it disappears. But discipline, that's internal. That's principle-based. It's not about how you feel. It's about who you decided to become. Discipline is when the identity becomes stronger than the impulse, when your commitment outlasts your convenience. Let me ask you something honest. How many things have you started in your life? Now, how many have you finished? The gap between those two numbers is the size of your discipline. It's not about talent. It's not about time. It's about consistency. The willingness to endure boredom, to tolerate repetition, to push through resistance not once, but every single time it shows up, which you will, that's discipline. And that's the unglamorous path to every real result. Now here's the psychological truth. Most people overlook discipline is not a punishment. It's a declaration of value. You only discipline what you care about. A disciplined life is a statement that says, this is worth showing up for even when it's hard. You brush your teeth daily, not because it's exciting, but because you value your health. The same must apply to your goals if your dreams matter. Your actions must reflect that every day, not just when you feel inspired. There's also a deeper philosophical truth here. Discipline is freedom in disguise. Think about it. Who is more free? The person who gives in to every craving, every distraction, every impulse, or the one who has trained themselves to control their emotions, direct their time, and build habits that serve them? The second person looks rigid from the outside, but inside they are powerful, self-directed, unshaken. That is true freedom. Discipline is not a cage, it is the key. And it doesn't require grand heroic efforts. It requires small, repeated victories. Waking up when the alarm rings, saying no. When your old self wants yes, choosing progress over comfort hour by hour, day by day. These as tiny decisions are bricks, stack them high enough, and you build the fortress of success. Miss enough of them, and all you have is rubble. Hill often reminded us nature does not reward effort, it rewards results. You either plant and tend the garden, or you let weeds take over, and weeds don't ask for permission. They grow by default. That's how undisciplined habits work. If you do not consciously shape your mind and behavior, life will shape them for you, and life doesn't always have your best interests in mind. You cannot escape this law. Either you control your habits or your habits will control you. So the real question becomes, what kind of life are your current disciplines creating? Because whether you are aware of it or not, you are already living the result of yesterday's disciplines. And tomorrow will reveal the quality of today's decisions. You're either preparing or you're postponing. But time doesn't wait. I've met people with incredible potential, genius level minds, beautiful ideas, passionate hearts, but they never learned how to master themselves, and the world doesn't pay for potential. It pays for delivery. It doesn't reward effort, it rewards finished work, and only discipline can finish what desire starts. So if you want to write that book, start that business, transform your health, build that legacy, understand this. There's no magic moment coming. There's no surge of motivation on its way. It will always come down to what you do when the emotion is gone. And all that's left is your decision. Will you move forward or will you retreat again? Because in the end, success is not something you chase, it's something you build. One choice at a time, one day at a time. Discipline is the scaffolding of greatness. It's what makes dreams durable. And it's the one thing nobody can give you, but also the one thing no one can take away. So decide in not just what you want, but what you're willing to suffer for, what you're willing to repeat. Because that and only that will define the shape of your life. The future is not written in wishes. It's written in discipline,